Rev up your engines!
iOS, sure off says, Scotty, do you think Ford products will soon be as reliable as Toyota, or will stay like it is now or get worse? Modern technology is really high tech, and they stick a lot of it in cars. And a lot of it has planned obsolescence built in. Either the technology gets outdated and people want newer technology, or they can just make computer systems that turn themselves off after a certain period of time. And when you use electronic and plastic parts on cars, they're going to wear out faster. So all cars have more planned obsolescence than they used to. For example, you're not going to be able to buy a Toyota like I did and have a Celica that's 25 years old with 240,000 miles. It still runs like a top. I doubt that any of the newer ones will last that long. I don't think Ford will ever exactly match Toyota because it is an American company and they have so much pressure for short-term profit versus the Japanese companies that aren't as short-term thinking. But even the Toyotas these days, they're worse made than they used to be. There's just, I see water pumps, brake master cylinders fail with the problems they had in the CVT transmissions, new ones that are the hatchback, the Corolla hatchbacks that they had to recall. You didn't used to see that in Toyota. So, if anything, they're all kind of getting a little bit worse. Willie G says, hey, the check engine light on my 2003 Camry came on midway through a 400-mile road trip, but then it went off. What's up? Here is how check engine lights work. Every so long, I guess it's like a minute, 45 seconds or something, who knows, but it's some shorter period of time. The computer checks everything in its system. And then what does it do? Then it does it again. It just keeps doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. After so many cycles of seeing a particular problem, it turns your check engine light on. Then it has a code. But if you keep driving it, after a certain amount of cycles, it sees that problem doesn't exist anymore, then it turns the check engine light off. So, if you got a real minor problem, it can go on and off and on and off. But at least on the modern cars, it has historical memory. So a guy like me will plug in a scan tool and we'll look at it and say, here's historical codes, and you say you're getting this historical code over and over. If it happened 10 times, it would have it on there 10 times, and you know that's the system to look at. But that's why they do that. That's why they can come on and go off and come on and go off. Dave's, my '07 Chevy Impala S appears to have a throttle sticking issue. In the olden days, they had a cable. You step on the cable would open the throttle. And what would happen with those sticking is the throttle would get carbon and build up, or the cable would bind. So you get some spray lubricant for the cable, like motorcycle cable, spray it in there, and you take off the air intake and you spray the throttle, because carbon was on that throttle plate. It would stick, and that would keep it from sticking. Alas, modern cars all have electronic throttles. It's done by computer. And if you really get a sticking throttle on those, when you step on the accelerator pedal, that's binding, or you're stepping on a computer mouse, actually. And if that is binding, it might need accelerator pedal sensor. It could be sticking. If it's not that, it means that the throttle itself is sticking. You can clean that still, the plate, with throttle spray cleaner. If that didn't fix it, then it would need a new throttle assembly. It would mean the motor itself, and it was binding, and you'd have to replace it. Nobody fixes them. You just replace the whole throttle assembly. Dahlbeck, who says, Scotty, got a question. I got an '08 Dodge Dakota. I have some popping noise coming out of the exhaust. Okay, popping noise coming out of the exhaust is misfires. Misfires can come from many things. You start simple and work your way up. That's always how you should fix cars. Check the spark plugs. If they're misfiring, it'll do that. Check the ignition coils. If they misfire, they're doing it. And let's say you have a misfire code when you put a scan tool on. Say it says misfire cylinder number 3. The easiest thing I know is to do is to take the ignition coil off number 3, put it on number 1, and put number 1 on number 3. And if the mis moves over to number 3 for number 1, then you know, it's a bad coil, and replace the coil. But it can also be fuel injectors that aren't spraying right. Be a head gasket blowing. A lot of stuff can make them pop, but always start with the simple stuff like spark plug. Even if bad fuel injector, you could swap them if you checked all the other, and then swapping the fuel injectors, the misfire moves, and you know that's the problem. You got to be logical when you do those things. Just don't start wildly guessing, or you throw money away. You usually don't fix anything. X94 says, Scotty, what are your thoughts on a 2011 Ford Focus that has badly rusted rocker panels? Like Neil Young saying, rust never sleeps. Well, once you got holes, it's rotting away. Today, there is no reason for cars to rust. That's a 2011. It was just made poorly. My mother's driving 14-year-old Toyota Corolla in Buffalo, New York. No rust on it at all because they use that zinc primer. It's electrostatically put into the vehicle when they put the whole body of the car underwater, and electrostatically it sticks on it as zinc. They don't corrode. A 2011 should never rust. If it did, it's because they didn't build it right in the first place. And if you ever see a car that is rusting out and you're thinking about buying it used, don't buy it. There's so many not rusted cars out today. It's not like the old days where they all had to rust because they didn't have any zinc primer. Now, a good car, even in Buffalo, isn't going to rust. Austin Carter. Scotty, the AC in my 2015 Chrysler 300 only blows cold air when the car is moving. If you're sitting there, it doesn't blow cold air, but it only does it when it's moving. Two things. First, turn it on full blast, open the hood. Look at the cooling fans. They should be blowing air like mad. If they're not, fix the cooling fans, because if there's no air blowing, it's not going to go. Now, another common thing is it's just low on refrigerant. If you're low on refrigerant, when it's idling, it won't turn the compressor on. But when you get going faster, a lot of times it'll start, and then once it starts and the pressures build up, it'll work for a while until the engine goes slower, and then it's spinning slower, and the low refrigerant just shuts the system off. Pray it's one of those, because another common thing is a compressor that's just flat wearing out that until you get to moving down the road, it won't start itself up, and like if it's got a bad clutch on it, you get rolling, you hit a couple of bumps, and then that jolts it, and the electricity starts spinning a compressor. Then you need a compressor, and they're expensive. Christian Pete one says, Scotty, what do you think of a 2006 Toyota Prius? I know you said don't buy a hybrid used, but you know, I really want one. The batteries are pretty good, but by 14 years old, generally those batteries are going out. And they cost a small fortune for a new one. And here's something that a lot of people really don't understand about it, and there's a lot of scams about, oh, you can just buy a rebuilt one, save a bunch of money. Yeah, you can get a rebuilt big hybrid battery, but understand, on those Toyotas, the hybrid battery is really a bunch of small batteries all connected together. When they go bad, they don't all go bad at once. Some of them go bad and they lose a lot of their power. When you hook the computer up to the Prius battery, it did a bunch of testing for like about an hour. And then it would say, this cell is bad, that cell's bad. So the guys that rebuild them, they do that. And then maybe 6 or 8 of the all cells that are on there are bad, and they replace those ones and say, here, it's reconditioned, take it away. Well, the majority of the cells are still the original cells that are 12 years old. How long are they going to last? Now, these guys might give you a year guarantee, but hey, what's a year? You know, you're buying a car battery, even that's going to be well over $1,000, and if it goes bad after a year, then you're back to square one. The original batteries are excellent. There's no arguing that. I've seen them go 10 years and they're still working, but you get these rebuilt ones. I've seen rebuilt ones, they go bad year and a half, then you're back to square one. That's why I tell people not to buy those. And that's just the battery. Let's say the generator goes bad on that 06 Prius. That's like a $5,900 job to replace a generator. So if you can get a Toyota Prius like that cheap, I've had customers buy them for like $1,200. What the heck? If the thing lasts a year or two, you made out fine paying that little amount of money. But don't put a lot of money into one of those things because they're too expensive to fix as they wear out. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.